I don't know if you remember this, but we actually then went to a California winery and we created
Hmm.
our own wine with them. We labeled it ourselves and we sold, it was the number one selling wine.
This is a tangible. What I remember about that adventure is when you would come back from Napa Valley or Sonoma
Yeah.
Valley
Yeah.
with the wine, but we wanted a bottle, and you and I are driving. I'm probably 11 or 12, and we're driving by this house, and we see an old antique
Yeah.
a
It's like a water
statue
fountain.
of
Right.
a little boy carrying
Right.
water, and we go, well, we like that. And we pull into this stranger's driveway and we go, 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 go. We take a photo in their front lawn before they come out. And then I had just learned Photoshop in middle
Right.
school for our yearbook,
Right.
and I figured out how to take that photo and make it look like this 2D antique thing, and that became our logo
It became our
on our
logo.
wine
You
bottles.
heavily contrasted it so it looked like an
Yeah.
antique, and it was the water boy holding. It really was buckets of grapes, and we came up with our own label, and um, we would order so many. We had to have a guaranteed order of so many cases. I forget exactly what it was, but it was a lot. It was about $40,000 worth of wine.
Hmm.
And the original deal was they would keep it there and then they would ship it to us when we wanted it. So when we knew we had,
Because we have to go through a
pallets worth,
distributor. You could not. I think recently now you can ship over state lines, but you could not, as
couldn't
an
do it then.
individual, ship wine over a
Yeah.
state line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the original idea for this whole thing came from one of our early bartenders when I was asking him what was moving and what wasn't moving. And he said, typically what we recommend. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, people don't know. And they'll sit down and we'll ask them if they're going to have dinner. And if they do, we set up the counter, we get the napkin ready, and we're talking to them. We put the cocktail menu out, we put a wine list out, and they'll say, I don't know, what's good? And whatever we tell them, 95% of the time, they'll say, sure, I'll try that. So I said, so if we had our own label and you recommended that, that could be our number one seller. And he said, as long as it's a good quality wine.
Hmm.
And I said, well, okay, let's give it a try. It took a while. If you remember, we had to get special licensing for it. There were all kinds of
Hmm.
hoops we had to jump through. We had to make sure we weren't in violation. Our distributor wasn't happy. We actually had to cut him in on it to make
Hmm.
sure that he got his piece, even though he never touched the wine.
Yep.
And it did become the number one seller to the point where we did the same thing with the beer. Do you remember the Rustic Kitchen
I
beer?
do. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
went to Tremont Ale and we
Yep.
said, "Will
They
you
made rustic ale. Yeah.
do a rustic ale for us?" And the same thing applies. People would say, "What's good?" And we'd say, "Try the rustic ale." We had our own tap. We had our tap handle made, and
Hmm.
we lined that up. And the rustic ale and the rustic wine, our own label wine, which was a Cab Sauv blend. Um, had Cab Sauv had a little more low in it, and it was really a fantastic wine to the point where I don't know if you know this whole side story.
If it's a story, I think then yeah,
In the
where it gets
end, it
stolen
was
from
so
us.
popular,
Yeah.
they said they had made so many bottles for us, and
Yeah.
they said, we can't hold this wine any longer here. You're welcome to buy it all and take it, which they knew I couldn't. Or we're
Yeah.
going to, the labels weren't on the bottles yet. The labels go on
Right.
the bottles when they're ready to send to us.
Yeah.
They knew this. And they said, you can take the order right now and take literally a tractor trailer full of wine, and you have to figure out where to store it and so forth. Or we're going to sell it. And they stuck their own label on that wine as a different blend, and they sold it all out.
And then I found out years later there was some wine website, some wine app, and like 3 years before they even had that conversation, they were already selling ours under their own label. So
Yeah.
that was when they were like that was when they were ready to completely kick us out. And they gave us one opportunity of, yeah, you can spend 100 grand, drive a tractor trailer out to Napa
Right.
Valley, load up
Right.
your wine, drive it
Right.
3,000 miles away,
Right.
break every liquor law along the way, which they
Right.
know we couldn't do, or we're gonna sell your wine, and they sold all our wine.
Right.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, I think we were buying it for about $9 a bottle
That sounds right. Yeah.
in the beginning, and they kept, pushing the price up, and we were at around 13 or so when they finally put a gun to our head. And